The Winnipeg Convention Centre opened in 1975. It was designed to be a catalyst in the rebuilding of Winnipeg's aging downtown. Bernie Wolfe remembers it well.
And if you can imagine what this looked like before the convention center, you're looking at an area here that was full of old rooming houses and I might say houses of ill repute. All that was cleaned out and just disappeared as a result of the impact of the convention center coming in. I think it became a source of real pride. People would come down just to see the visitors from out of town. People like Bob Hope. Everybody wanted to see Bob Hope and get his autograph, and this is where they had to come.
Since it was built, the Convention Centre has attracted over 1 million convention delegates and millions of visitors.
I can't imagine Winnipeg without the Convention Centre. It's a critical asset that we have here.
In the last year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million in expenditures on delegate spending by meetings and conventions came to the city of Winnipeg, some 200 conventions, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 58,000 delegates. So that's a significant level of visitation.
When there's a large convention in the city, one that perhaps has a large block at this hotel as well as perhaps two or three others, that's when all of us are at our happiest.
When there is a convention in town, I believe that it benefits everyone in the city of Winnipeg. When convention hotels are filled, there is always spin-off for the rest of us, and that encompasses the entire city.
And perhaps it's just even the fact that 2006 just happened. We had a better year, and when we went and defined what made it a better year, it was a better convention year.
Anytime that we can showcase our city by bringing people in that would never otherwise come to enjoy, they don't just stay at their conventions, they eat in our restaurants, they go and look at attractions in the cities.
Well, the meeting and convention and the trade show business is integral to the overall health of the tourism industry in Manitoba.
I think the role of a convention center is extraordinarily important to the well-being of a region, let alone the city in which it might sit.
Right now, the Convention Centre is generating about $39 million worth of economic impact into the Winnipeg economy annually.
We've just recently hosted the Grey Cup, and it's a wonderful event for our city. The Convention Centre was Grey Cup Central. It was just a hub of activity every single evening.
It has a huge impact. I mean, our company alone would put through about $3 to $4 million worth of supplier purchases for our clients. For example, if we had a 600-person conference, that means we need 600 briefcases, so that's going to be purchased from a local advertising supplier. We need 600 delegate packages printed, so a local printer is going to get that work. There's transportation, there may be floral arrangements, there may be decor, and even entertainment where we would hire local people.
For example, the boat show will put 20,000 people into it, and that's probably 15 of that is local population. The RV show would put 10,000 into it. The home show puts 34,000 people down here.
Well, I think when we see major events happen in Winnipeg, conferences and trade shows and sporting events that come in, you see a real buzz in downtown Winnipeg. You see people get excited, you see more people on the streets, restaurants are busier, but the hotels are busy, and I think Winnipeggers really like seeing those people on the street when the city is busy and downtown is full.
But the convention business is changing, and right across the country, the competition is heating up.
When I started with the Canadian Labour Congress in 1979, my first convention was in 1980, and it was in Winnipeg. And at that time, our event fit. As the years have gone by, our organization has become very, very much larger. We're now in excess of 3.2 million members. And our space needs and those of our ancillary events have long since outgrown the Winnipeg Convention Centre, its current configuration.
Well, I think what has happened in the last 5 years is that the needs and the nature of conventions have changed dramatically. In the past, the convention was really a meeting. You had 500 people who had a need to sit there and have a plenary session all together, then break out. What they've added to almost every major convention now is a trade show component. So where 30,000 or 40,000 square feet would have been sufficient for that group, 10 years ago, that group size has not gotten any larger, but because they have added the trade center component, their space requirements have virtually doubled. So, we're at risk of losing some business that's looked at Winnipeg as a primary destination, who's sitting there and saying now our needs have grown and the facility is just not sufficient to be able to host us anymore.
An expansion is just so desperately needed here for the convention center.
We're really being hurt by the size of this building right now. The building works very well with us. We work very hard, and it's a good building, but it's way too small.
We went through a very comprehensive research program, first looking at what level of activity is happening at the competitive convention centers across Canada. But we also undertook a very comprehensive survey with meeting planners, both existing users at the convention center in Winnipeg and groups that currently aren't coming to Winnipeg for various reasons. And one of those reasons is, in fact, the nature and the size of the facility. Not large enough to accommodate the events, or in fact not large enough to accommodate two events at the same time.
When this building was built, it had the vision of, I guess it was Mayor Juba and some of his supporters at that time, to build what was really the first and at that time only convention center in Canada. Well, needless to say, everybody else from small communities to the Torontos and Montreals have caught up, passed us far behind, and are very aggressive in promoting their locations.
I was just at a convention last fall in Edmonton, and it was the very first convention in the new Shaw Convention Centre. So Edmonton has expanded that facility. Saskatoon has expanded theirs, in addition to their new TCU Place, which is where we hold some of our evening events. And Regina has just put in a new 90,000 square foot facility attached to their old fairgrounds. So it seems like every city in Western Canada and across Canada have realized the benefits of conventions and the importance, and have spent the money to expand and upgrade their facilities.
And to the south, our sister city, Kansas City, Missouri, has made their convention center the cornerstone of an ambitious plan to revitalize the downtown area.
In Kansas City, our convention center is located in the heart of our downtown. It is an initial set of structures that began to age pretty dramatically. It was very clear that we were not going to be able to continue to generate the convention business we wanted to and had traditionally been able to do if we did not refurbish our convention center.
Well, I think there's a real concern that if you look at the statistics, that the supply side in the convention business is increasing well in excess of the demand growth. And there is demand growth.
Well, I can tell you that up until 2 years ago, my company was doing on an average 25 to 28 events a year. The business is expanding so greatly that we did 42 events in 2006, and it looks like we're going to be on target again for that for 2007. So obviously the industry is growing, it's expanding, there's a greater need and a greater interest, and we have to make sure that we're prepared to compete with other provinces.
There's been recent expansion at the Edmonton Convention Centre. It went up by about 35,000 square feet with about 160,000 square feet of rentable space now, and in fact is larger than we have in Winnipeg at roughly 132,000. Calgary is in discussions about expanding their facility. While the numbers aren't known in terms of what that might be, likely going to be something in the range of 100,000 square feet. Vancouver has just increased their convention center, will be opening in 2008 and be going from about 160,000 square feet to well over 500,000 square feet. In Atlantic Canada, Moncton, Fredericton, Charlottetown are all talking about building new convention centers. Halifax is talking about expanding theirs. Ottawa, who's a primary competitor for Winnipeg, is in the process right now of taking their facility, which is about 65,000 square feet, to well over 200,000 square feet in the next 3 years.
Well, we would be hard-pressed to be in the business without a significant and a quality convention center. We recognize that pretty well every major city now has a significant convention center and large convention hotels.
If you're staying the same, you're actually moving backward, and we're seeing that. I mean, other cities are getting more aggressive in terms of the convention space that they're offering.
The design and the size and scope of the convention center is critical.
Obviously, it's going to be tough to compete because we're only so big and we have only so many types of conferences that we can accommodate.
What we're finding is that more and more the larger conferences are booking 5, 10, even 15 years out. So if they're looking that far ahead and knowing the expansion of their organization, the Winnipeg Convention Centre may be one that's going to have to be taken off their list simply because they know that we're not going to be able to provide the adequate space that they're going to need that far out.
A do-nothing scenario is one that's accepting the fact that we're going to be losing significant dollars in terms of economic benefits to the tune of about $6 million a year, but we're also going to be writing a check $1 million greater to subsidize the operations of the facility.
In any community, there are always the naysayers, the people who say, well, we don't need to do that, it will cost too much, we have to have every single pothole fixed before we can do anything else. What they don't understand is that to generate the revenue to be able to address the potholes, you have to have economic development. You have to have conventions coming to your city to bring those tourist dollars in so that you can then put much of that money into the city coffers to address neighborhood concerns and social needs that don't generate their own income.
We're one of the only cities in Canada of the size that we're at that doesn't have a car show. Talking to some of the auto manufacturers, we're not even on their radar because of the size of our building, so they're not even considering us.
It's getting harder and harder for us to book events at the Winnipeg Convention Centre. Either our clients can't get the additional space they need to grow their events, or they can't get their preferred dates.
Right now for both my RV and my boat show, I have a waiting list of exhibitors that would like to come into the building, and we literally do not have the space to put them into.
Currently, the convention center is generating about 93,000 room nights annually for the industry. If we do nothing, we have the potential to lose about 24,000 of that. So literally in excess of 25% of the benefit that's coming out of the convention center could go away.
We are obviously in competition with cities both across the United States and in Canada for convention business. If we don't have updated and new facilities, depending on whatever that combination might need to be, we will not have the business we need to have to flourish.
The time has come that we really have to make a move and add space to the convention center. I don't think that we will be able to service the degree of conventions that are needed with the development of the Canadian Human Rights Museum. I'm concerned that we will be missing opportunities in the city without it, and I think it's critical and timely to address, the expansion of the convention center, because it's going to take time for it to be built, so we need to do that today.
I think it's very important that our city and our downtown continues to revitalize and compete with other cities our size. And if other cities are expanding their convention facilities and that's turning economic development opportunities and momentum in those cities, then we need to be sure that we're the leaders in our own city and have the right type of infrastructure to continue attracting conventions and other conventions that currently aren't being hosted here.
So we undertook that process, and the change is remarkable. And certainly the business we're now getting is the result of that.
Well, if we don't plan now for expansion in the next few years, we are going to lose people who have always looked at Winnipeg as a good destination. So it's not just losing new business, it's losing existing business. And Winnipeg doesn't want to stand still, we want to grow and prosper.
Looking ahead, what is there, a parking lot across the street, was the land that we put into the set aside for the further development of the convention center. That was phase 2.
It became very clear through those surveys and existing and potential users that that ability to build a larger facility and configured the way that the users need it is going to allow more events to come to this city.
The impact of an expanded convention center would actually be that we would enjoy increased demand, and certainly as far as the radius of how many hotels would be required is absolutely, it'll just increase the reach with respect to how much of the inventory is needed, and also therefore the pressure that it puts on the rest of the city or out to the airport community, etc.
We're looking at the potential to recover 64,000.